Well, I'm going to preach tonight, so you can put up for our band and take a seat as we get ready to do part 7 of Inside Out. And I'm pretty excited to preach this. It's been something that God's been speaking about all week, and I just was excited to get into it with you as a church, and those that are visiting, those that are online, welcome, because I'm going to be reading a story out of John, and in John you can find here, it's Jesus and the disciples doing their thing. So they're coming along, they're doing their thing, and they're walking along. And it says here in verse 1, they went along and they saw a man that was blind since birth. Now, just to put some weight on this story, this guy wasn't just like lately found he was blind or something tragically happened to him. He described in the Bible as someone that was just blind from birth. He had never been able to see, he'd never been able to understand what life looked like or what things felt like. And in verse 2 here, it's really interesting because Jesus sees him and the disciples say to him, Jesus, Rabbi, what is up with this guy? Like, did he do something wrong to deserve this blindness? The Bible says here, they said to Jesus that, hey, Rabbi, who sinned here? Was it the man himself that sinned? Was it his parents? Was it someone he knew? And I love this part of the story because it's like, I live in a world now where people think that. They're like, man, if you do something wrong, you're going to get punished for that. You're going to get in trouble for that. And the disciples were asking Jesus, like, hey, Jesus, this guy's blind. This guy's, he can't see. Where did it go wrong? Was it him that did the wrong thing or was it his parents? In verse 3, then Jesus comes into the story again. He says, neither the man nor his parents sinned, Jesus said. But this happened to him so the works of God may be displayed in his life. In verse 5, it goes down and Jesus is still talking. He says, why I am in the world, I am the light of the world. After saying this is where the story gets a little bit interesting. Jesus then says all this to the disciples. He's like, explain this to them. And he says here, it says in verse 6, after saying this, he spat on the ground, made some mud with his saliva, and put it on the man's eyes. Everybody say gross in the house. And then Jesus says to the man that's been blind since, he was born, he says, now go, he told him, wash your eyes in the pool of Siloam. And then the Bible describes that Siloam actually means the word sent. So it says sent, off you go. Bible clarifies that. It says, so the man went and he washed his eyes and he came home seeing. How good's that? In verse 8, he gets to where he is from. He gets to his home. And his neighbors say to him, who formerly have seen him before, they're like, hey, aren't you the same guy that was begging and you're the guy that everyone feels sorry for and you're the guy that everyone knows has this blind problem? Aren't you that man? Some claimed it was him. Some claimed it wasn't. And it says here, people would say to him, isn't this the same man who used to sit and beg? In verse 9 it says here, some claimed that it was him, others said, nah, it's just a guy that looks like him. But the man himself insisted, no, I am that guy that used to beg and used to have blindness. And they said, well, how then were your eyes opened? They asked him. And he replied with this, a man named Jesus made some mud. This is funny when you think about it. A man named Jesus made some mud. He put it on my eyes and told me to go to the place that we call sent and wash. So I went and I did what he said and I could see again. Then the crowd said, well, who is this man? So where is this man? And the man answered, I don't know. And so the premise of this, going into part 7 of Inside Out, is you've got to understand this guy. He's not someone that, did something and then he, got punished for it, or he did something and then he got blindness, or he did something. And a lot of us can think the problems in my life, the things where things have gone wrong with my relationships, the things where things have gone wrong with my household, my parents, there's a lot of things that have gone wrong in our lives, and we can be quick to say, well, this has to be my karma, this has to be my punishment, this has to be, I deserve this sometimes. Yeah. And the reality is that sometimes things just happen. Yeah. And so the first thing I want to talk about tonight is that in this house tonight, and those online, your setback will become your comeback when you connect with God. See, people live a life where things go wrong. We've talked about this for the last parts. There's things where relationships are broken. There's things where sicknesses come into families. There's things where divorces happen and we don't know why. There's all sorts of problems in this world that we live in. And sometimes we might find ourselves going, well, this is God punishing us all for our sin. And the disciples thought this because they're like, Jesus, man, look at this guy. He's blind. He's got issues. Who did the wrong thing here? It must have been him or it must have been someone he knows. And Jesus goes, no. His setback is about to become his comeback because he links up with me. And right now in this place, you might be in a position or a season where your setback has happened. You've had something set you back in life. Can I say tonight, in this house, if you team up with Jesus, that will become your comeback. Take your setback and turn it into your comeback. I don't want to frown upon you. I don't want to talk to people that don't know Jesus and say, well, look at that person. They're blind, broken, and hurt. I'm going to say the blind, broken, and hurt, that setback, you partner with Jesus, they'll become your comeback. People in here tonight, you know your story, you know your pain, you know your hurt. That is not who you are. You might be blind since birth, you might be hurt since yesterday, you might be hurt your whole life. Know this tonight, your setback, partnering with God, will become your comeback. The disciples even were like, Jesus, why is this man getting punished? What did he do wrong? Come on, Rabbi, tell us. Because this guy's got issues. So what did he do wrong? Was it him? Was it his parents? And sometimes we're like, man, the life we live sucks and stuff went wrong. And it's like, even like the disciples are like, come on, who did the wrong thing here? Come on, Jesus, tell us. And he responds, he says, no, neither. Neither was this. And sometimes in life, I found myself, and I'm like, I'm trying to justify the pain that's happened to me. But sometimes the pain is just unjustifiable. Sometimes life happens. Sometimes things go wrong. Sometimes bad things just happen, and there is no way to justify it. There's people in this room tonight, there's people online. They have pain, they have problems, they are suffering on the inside. And I'm telling you now that you're looking for a justification, but sometimes there just isn't a justification. Things just go wrong. And I want to say this tonight, and this is what we believe here as a church, Heart House, that it's not God punishing you. You know, one of the biggest misconceptions is people know they've done the wrong thing. They know that wrong thing has happened to them. They know that they've got issues. And they think that some high power or some religion is going to punish them for their sins. But the God I serve isn't out for punishment, but he's out to pursue those that have been punished by life and its circumstances. And so you need to know this tonight if you're stepped in here with your mess. God doesn't want to punish you. He wants to pursue you. Because Jesus answered so quickly to these disciples. He said, hey guys, calm down. Neither did he sin or his parents. This is so the great works of me can be shown in his life. He says this in verse 3, I read it again. Neither the man or his parents sinned, Jesus said, but this happened so the great goodness of God could be displayed in his life. Right now, there's people in this room, and I believe this online, you've gone through some crap, you've gone through some mess. Right now, I believe that God's going to display the goodness in your life, and people are going to see the miracle, and people are going to see you have the best comeback they've ever seen, and they'll go, I know the old you, and you go, well, this is the new me, because my greatest setback became my greatest comeback. What you're going through right now, it might be a setback. On the inside, on the outside, it's like that, but Jesus gets involved and it becomes your comeback. Believe that tonight. You know, second thing God does is very interesting. It's a very amazing concept. God will use the outside mess and the mud and the filth and the things that have gone wrong in your life. He will use the outside mud and mess and damage that we've all walked through, and he will turn it into inside sight. A heart for people that are in pain. And what I mean by this, let me read this verse to you again, then I'll tell you what I can see of this. After this, in verse 6, it says here, after saying this, he spat on the ground and he made some mud. with his saliva. Then he rubbed the mud on the man's eyes, the guy that had been blind his whole life. And he says to him, which I found very interesting this week, he says to him, now go. I tell you to go. Go to this place called Siloam, which is the place that means sent. Wash your eyes. And it says the man washed his eyes and then he came home seeing. You know, the beautiful thing about God is when he starts to heal you, he'll then send you. He's a God that will change the inside trauma, the inside pain, the inside things that have gone wrong. He will turn that into a platform for you to help others. I want you to understand this. He said, now you've been healed. What do? Go home. I don't think it's just physical home tonight, because I know that people have physical homes, but I believe it's the sacred place of where you belong. It's the groups of people you hang around. It's the people that you do life with. That's your home. Who you do life with, your family, your friends, that is where God will send you. And I love this because you best go home. I'll tell you why. Because when you are healed for your trauma, when you're healed from your brokenness, and when you're healed, God then says, go back to that place, because then you can start to see the healing process that can start in other people's lives. You know why Jesus said to him, hey, now you can see, go home? Because I'm believing in this place tonight, people are going to start to see again. People are going to have trauma removed from their life. People are going to have depression drop off their life. People are going to have freedom in their lives. They're no longer going to be bondaged by their mess and their hurt, but they're going to step up and go, I need to go home with this. I need to go places with this. And I need to show people that Jesus dwells in the most broken place. Go home. Go to the place you're in, because God's there already. We've talked about this in this series. God's dwelling with the most broken people in Port Macquarie right now. He's there. People go, oh no, he's at church with us. Yeah, he's at church with us right now. But he's also with the homeless man under the bridge. He's also with the broken person that just went through a divorce. He's also with those in the hospital right now facing sickness. God dwells with the broken. He's with the hurt. And this whole scenario of going home wasn't because God's not there. It was because he needs us to see eyes that those broken people need him just as much as anyone else. And once the man saw again, God said, you better best get home. Have a heart for people. I want to be a church, and we are. I think we are. I'm not even saying I want to be. We're a church that is okay with the broken, and we're okay with the hurt. We're okay with the sorrow. We're okay with the mess. We are okay with this because as God rubbed mud on our eyes, we saw the pain of society. You know, this is a prayer that I ask God all the time. I say, God, I want us as a church, me as a person, change my sympathy into empathy. Once you heal me, change my sympathy into my empathy, because this is what will happen. You will be set free for your problems. People in this room tonight, online, you're facing some horrendous hurt. Depression, regret, things that people have said about you. We're all carrying some stuff. And as God uses the filth of your life, the mud, the brokenness, the things you carry, once he opens your eyes to that, you will go from having sympathy for the broken, and you will have empathy for the broken. I'm thankful that God used my past and my mess and my filth so I could see the hurt in others. He allowed me to see. And the difference is sympathy is I have pity on people that have missed the mark. I have pity on those that have broken. I have pity on those that have gone through a divorce. I have pity on anyone that's got problems. But empathy is a whole different word. I feel the pain of those that are carrying the pain. God will use the mud in your life, the hurt in your life, the disappointment in your life. He will use these things so you have empathy for the person next to you. I never would understand depression until I faced depression. I would never understand sickness until I faced sickness. I never understood someone being lost until I was lost. These things create us to understand other people's journeys. God will use the filth in your life. He'll use the dirt in your life. He'll use the things that you think are not from God. He will turn them into your empathy for others. Let us pray, God, that we are not filled with sympathy, but we have empathy for those that are hurt. I want to have empathy for people in Port Macquarie. I want to feel the pain of those that are suffering, those that are hurt, so then I can help them know about this God that we preach about. You know, the third thing here I want to talk to you tonight about is when God starts to transform the inside. People won't recognize you on the outside. Once God starts to grab your heart, He starts to transform us. He starts to transform you. Maybe you're not a believer tonight. Maybe you don't know what this God's about. You don't understand any of that. But once He gets a hold of that, on the outside, on the inside, He will transform you, and people won't see the outside. They won't recognize you on the outside. You know, I spent my whole life struggling with the fact that everyone I knew, once I found God, knew the real me. I found God at my early 20s. I was thankful to walk in, come back to church and look for God again. And God found me, and I found a relationship with God. And hello, here's the fast forward the story. I'm now running a church. But back then, I used to walk around with a bit of shame because I'm like, man, my friends at school, people they know the real me. Like, this is me trying to get to know God and try to get good with God. On the inside, God was transforming me, but on the outside, everyone knew the real me. But I remember being on this journey and following God, and now I'm almost unrecognizable because people say to me, they're like, hey, you can't be the same guy that used to do that, right? I'm like, yeah, that was me. I'm like, that was me. I did do that at school. I did do that at that party. I did do that on the bus. And so people say, surely that's not the same guy, right? Let me read you verse 8 to 11 again, and as I prepare to close, I want you to just listen to this part. He went home, and his neighbors and those who had formerly seen him begging, they asked him, isn't this the same guy? Like, aren't you the same guy that had all the issues? Aren't you the same guy that used to beg and you were blind? And aren't you the same guy? And then in verse 9 it says here, some claimed it was. Some weren't sure. Some said, nah, it's just a guy that looks like him. And this debate started around whether this was the same guy, the same woman, the same man, the same person. Is that surely that's not the same guy? There's no way that's the same guy, right? And then he had to be like, yo, listen here, guys, it's me. Promise, I'm that dude. I'm the guy that was blind. I'm the guy that was begging. I promise you. The Bible says he reassured him. He's like, hey, I insist on this. I am that man. And then they say to him, well, then how were your eyes opened? How can you see all of a sudden? How can you be changed all of a sudden? And he replied with this, the man they call Jesus. And so, for my own personal journey, I'm like, I'm okay if people know the old me or the real me on the outside. But when God starts to get on the inside, people won't recognize you. Oh, aren't you that person that always was depressed and had trauma? Yeah, but a man named Jesus changed the inside. And I know you can't recognize me on the outside. But I'm telling you now, God's doing something on the inside. And I said this in part 1. You never judge someone from a distance because you'll never know what God's doing on the inside. I'm believing tonight that there's people online and you're sitting in your lounge rooms or you're in here right now and God's doing something on the inside. And the outside looks messy and the outside looks like it's broken and the outside looks like it's not put together. But when God starts to do something on the inside, none of us will recognize the outside. Because a man named Jesus. And I'm proud when I run into people now. I like see people, my old teachers and stuff. And instead of me walking around in shame and going, oh yeah, I'm the guy that found God, I'm all shameful. Because they know the real me. I walk around now and say, look, I'm still that broken person that's on this journey to get better. You're not seeing the good in me, you're just seeing the God in me. And I know you can't recognize it because you know me as this guy. And you know me as what I did. And you might be here tonight and you go, well, people know me for this. They know me for my brokenness. They know me for my sin. They know me for this. But here's the thing. When God gets in on the inside, not reforms, it's not like religion, we all follow the rules. He gets in on the inside, and you can't help but to transform your life on the outside. To people go, how does this even make sense? And so I believe that our church is involved with the transforming of people on the inside before the outside can even recognize them or even try to figure it out. I believe tonight there's people in here and you're carrying trauma, and I believe God is transforming that right now as we speak. That you won't be labeled as, oh, that's the person with trauma. People won't recognize your healing. They won't understand what's happened because you partnered with Jesus. And when they say to you, well, how did you figure this out? You go, oh, I didn't. A man named Jesus. This is like good news because it's like we can come to Heart House and we can come here and we can come with our brokenness and we can come with our mess and we can come with all our flaws and we can come with all this trouble and just step into a house and say, but the man named Jesus, take my filth, take my mud, take my garbage and allow me to see again. I believe in this room tonight he's transforming hurts on the inside that no one can see. He's healing them. Depression is falling around us as we speak. Not because I'm good, but because he's good. And I'm okay with not being recognizable anymore because it's the good of God in my life. I believe right now in inside family trauma or family things that are going wrong, there's healing being found, there's transformation happening in marriages, in relationships. Because for when God gets a hold on the inside, the outside becomes unrecognizable. And as the band comes, 2 Corinthians sums up this kind of thing that happens to people when they find God. And it's an amazing verse. I'm going to read it to you. And it says here, for we are the fragrance of Christ to God among those who are being saved and among those who are perishing. And you think about this Bible verse, right? It's like God's like, when you start to find me and you start to, on the inside, start to change, there's a fragrance that comes off you. There's something about you that changes where those that are perishing, those that are lost, those that are trying to be saved, they can tell something's up. They don't know how. I don't know if anyone's had this before, but people go, oh, you found religion, so you're goody good two-shoes. No. The fragrance isn't because I reformed. The fragrance is because I was transformed. And there's a difference. And so, as God works on the inside, the outside starts to look different. And so I want to just say tonight as I close, trust. Whether you've believed in God your whole life, you're just starting the journey, or you have no idea what's going on, trust there's a process that can start where he can grab the inside and transform you into this beautiful work of art. You can come here with your trauma. You can come here with your depression. You can come here with your brokenness. You can come here with your mud and muck. And Jesus won't punish you, but he will pursue you. And in that pursuing, you will start to transform from the inside out.